For 4 decades, a lie consumed an entire community. Hundreds of men believed they were receiving treatment. They believed doctors were helping them. In truth, they were being watched, their lives, their pain, their deaths recorded as data. This is the Tuskegee Syphilis study, a story of deception, betrayal, and a chilling reminder of how science can be twisted when ethics are abandoned. A promise of help. A promise. The story begins in 1932 in a small rural town in Alabama, Tuskegee. It was the heart of the Great Depression. The South was poor, but African American communities lived under even harsher conditions, cut off from education, opportunity, and especially medical care. For many, seeing a doctor was a luxury they could never afford. Illness often meant silence, suffering, and early death. And then came the offer. Representatives from the U.S. Public Health Service arrived with what sounded like a miracle: free medical care. They promised checkups, transportation to clinics, warm meals on visit days, even burial insurance. For men who had nothing, it felt like hope. 600 African American men signed up. They were told they had a condition called bad blood, a vague term used in the region for ailments ranging from fatigue to anemia. But the truth was far more sinister. Nearly 400 of these men were infected with syphilis. The rest, about 200, were healthy, but used as a control group. The men had no idea they were now subjects in a government experiment. The secret plan. What the men didn't know was that doctors had no intention of curing them. The goal of the study was not treatment. It was observation. Researchers wanted to watch the natural progression of syphilis, to see what happened when the disease was left untreated from beginning to end. From the very start, the deception was deliberate. The men received fake treatments, painful spinal taps labeled as special medicine, pills that did nothing, and endless checkups that were never meant to heal. The cruelty wasn't in what was given, but in what was withheld. Because in the 1940s, less than 10 years after the study began, the cure for syphilis was discovered. Penicillin. Cheap, accessible, effective. But the men of Tuskegee were denied it. Doctors across the country began prescribing penicillin, but in Tuskegee, letters were sent to local physicians instructing them, do not treat these patients. For decades, hundreds of men believed they were receiving help, while in truth, their lives were being sacrificed for data. The human cost. The consequences were horrific. Syphilis is not just a rash or a fever. Untreated, it can destroy the body and the mind. It attacks the brain, leading to blindness, dementia, paralysis, and eventually death. And that's exactly what happened. Men slowly lost their health, their jobs, their families. Some lost their sight, others lost their sanity. Many lost their lives. But the suffering didn't stop with them. Wives were infected. Children were born with congenital syphilis, condemned to a lifetime of pain before their lives even began. The doctors knew this. They recorded it. They filed reports, collected numbers, and wrote academic papers. But they did not intervene. Imagine trusting the very people who are supposed to heal you, only to realize years later that they were watching you die on purpose. This wasn't just science. It was betrayal on the deepest level. 40 years of silence. The Tuskegee study continued in secrecy for 40 years. From 1932 to 1972, generation after generation of doctors and officials allowed it to go on. Every so often, whispers of doubt arose. Some medical professionals questioned the ethics. Some even pushed to stop it. But the momentum of the system kept it alive. The justification? Science. The claim was that the data was too valuable, the results too important to interrupt. And so, men kept dying. Families kept suffering, and the lie stretched on. The exposure. The truth finally surfaced in 1972. A whistleblower inside the Public Health Service leaked documents to the press. Journalist Gene Heller of the Associated Press published the shocking story. For 40 years, hundreds of men had been deceived, denied treatment, and used as subjects in a cruel experiment. The nation erupted in outrage. The headlines were unforgiving. The public demanded answers. The government had betrayed its own citizens. The study was immediately shut down, but the damage was irreversible. The aftermath. Lawsuits followed. Survivors and the families of those who had died sought justice. Eventually, a settlement provided some financial compensation, but it could never undo the pain. Even more important, the Tuskegee revelations forced a reckoning in medical ethics. In 1974, the U.S. passed the National Research Act, leading to the creation of Institutional Review Boards, IRBs, committees that now oversee and regulate human research. The Belmont Report soon followed, outlining the principles of respect, beneficence, and justice, concepts that still guide medical research today. Globally, Tuskegee became the ultimate example of how science without ethics becomes dangerous. It reshaped how the world views informed consent. Today, before any medical study, participants must be told exactly what is happening, what the risks are, and that they have the right to leave at any time. Those safeguards exist because of Tuskegee. The apology. It took decades before the government admitted responsibility. In 1997, President Bill Clinton stood before survivors and their families and spoke words that were long overdue. What the United States government did was shameful, and I am sorry. He acknowledged that the betrayal was not just medical, it was racial. The men had been targeted because they were poor, black, and powerless. But for many families, the apology was bittersweet. No words could return their loved ones. No speech could undo 40 years of deception. The legacy. The Tuskegee syphilis study remains one of the darkest stains in American history. Its shadow stretches far beyond medicine. It shaped how communities view healthcare, how marginalized groups view government institutions, and how trust can be shattered in an instant. To this day, some communities remain hesitant to participate in medical studies, haunted by the memory of Tuskegee. And who can blame them? The study stands as a warning. When science loses sight of humanity, when power preys on the vulnerable, progress becomes a weapon instead of a cure. The men of Tuskegee never asked to be heroes. They asked for help, they trusted, and they were betrayed. Their story forces us to ask hard questions. How many times has the pursuit of knowledge crossed the line into cruelty? What price are we willing to pay for progress? And most unsettling of all, could something like this still happen, hidden in the shadows of modern science? The Tuskegee study ended in 1972, but its lessons echo louder than ever.